Hey guys, thanks for joining us here at Salty Ginger Talk. Returning listener, it's great to have you back. If you're new to the channel, we're glad you joined us and we really hope you like what you hear. So, our podcast is for people that think, for people that do, for people that lead, and people who believe in personal responsibility, individual liberty, and building a life of purpose. And today, we're going to talk about a topic that, for some reason, some people think is controversial. I don't think it's controversial at all, but I think it's a very, important topic. And that is why socialism always leads to poverty and austerity. For some reason, there is a louder noise than normal in our country, the United States, pushing to reconsider the capitalist system and look at a socialist system. And if you look at New York, they just elected a self-proclaimed Democratic socialist as the Democrat nominee for the mayor race that will happen in November of this year. So we're here to tell you that that would be a huge mistake. If you vote for that guy or if they vote for that guy, they're going to get exactly what they voted for, and that'll be a big problem for the people of New York. And today we're going to give you the 5 reasons that we see, the top 5 reasons we see with evidence that socialism consistently fails. We're going to give you real-world evidence. We're going to give you historical examples. We're going to give you comparisons to capitalism in each of those scenarios. And we're also going to explore some of the things that people take for granted that capitalism has provided to the world that makes right now the best time ever to be a human being alive on planet Earth. And that's pretty incontrovertible in terms of life expectancy, in terms of health, in terms of poverty levels. Now is better than ever to be a human being alive on planet Earth. I know it's an unpopular opinion. I don't know why. The evidence supports it overwhelmingly, but it's the absolute truth. But capitalism has done more than any economic system has to lift people out of poverty, to reduce suffering, and to extend human life in ways no other system even comes close to. So that's the episode. That's what we're talking about. With all that said, let's just jump into it. The reason number 1 that socialism always winds up in poverty and austerity is that socialism destroys incentives to produce. So let's look at the Soviet Union as an example. It's a textbook case. Central planning takes over in the Soviet Union. Productivity stagnates. Between 1950 and 1980, when the Soviet Union was under socialist and communist control, Soviet agricultural output was so poor that Russia, the USSR, had to import grain from the US despite having some of the largest arable land in the world. Don't forget, Russia's the largest country in terms of actual geographic land space in the world. It's the biggest. And it's got the largest arable land in the world. And they were so bad at planning this out for their citizens, they had to buy grain from their enemy, the United States, between 1950 and 1980. It fails because when you remove profit as a motivator and all the rewards are redistributed regardless of effort, people stop producing. It's very straightforward. Why would anyone work harder if the outcome is the same? Innovation dies and mediocrity thrives. Compare that to capitalism, where profit motive exists throughout the system. The U.S. agricultural sector, since we're talking about agriculture, operating largely in a capitalist market. And I agree, there are subsidies in that market that should be stripped out. We should not be subsidizing the agriculture industry. Totally disagree with that. Agree with if you're going to argue that, I'm with you 100%. We should not be subsidizing industries. We should not be picking winners or losers. But the U.S. agricultural sector, largely driven by a capitalist market, fed not only its own citizens, but the world. American farmers, incentivized by profit and innovation, revolutionized global food production. We're going to talk about it later on. It's lifted more people out of hunger than any system ever. And we've got proof. We'll back it up with numbers. So What we would warn you to do or ask you to do is examine the systems in your life where the rewards are divorced from the effort. Do you just get stuff for existing? Are things set up so that you just get something for showing up or being alive? That's a bad place to be. You want to align your incentives with output, whether it's in business, whether it's in your relationships, or in your personal development. If you don't align your incentives with output, with production, with being productive and getting something done, you're going to wind up in the same place that socialism winds up. You're going to be poor and you're going to be austere. It always happens. Okay, number 2, central planning cannot replace market signals, plain and simple. Let's look at Venezuela. Most people don't know this, but Venezuela has the largest oil reserves in the world. Larger than Saudi Arabia, larger than any country in the Middle East, larger than Russia. Venezuela has the largest oil reserves in the world. At one point, it was one of the richest nations in Latin America, and it descended into economic collapse after nationalizing industries, especially the oil industry, and attempting to fix prices. They went away from market economies. They went away from market signals and tried to fix prices. Hyperinflation reached 10 million% by 2019. Let me say that again. Hyperinflation reached 10 million% by 2019 in Venezuela. People were eating household pets to try to stay alive. There was no food in grocery stores. No one could afford to buy anything because prices were skyrocketing as they stood in line. It fails, socialism fails in these instances because markets rely on price signals. Those price signals reflect supply, demand, and scarcity. And I hear lots of people opine on this that don't have any training, any education. And look, I'm not going to rely on authority. I happen to have a degree in economics, so I have been trained in all this stuff. But you don't need a degree in economics to understand this. If more people want something, you can raise prices. If less people want something, you have to cut prices to get them to buy it. Capitalism allows those signals to happen freely, and things are priced appropriately because of it. When you try to replace that with a central planner or a brain trust that is all-seeing and all-knowing and knows better than everyone, it fails because nobody, no group of people can do that. None. Not one, not ever. It will never happen. When you remove those demand signals, it's going to lead to shortages, it's going to lead to waste, and it's going to lead to black markets. Every single time that happens, without fail. I challenge you to show me a socialist system that has not led to those 3 things wherever the shortages are. Look at it happen here in the United States in Prohibition. Prohibition created the mafia. We outlawed alcohol. People wanted alcohol. So the mafia said, hey, we can produce alcohol. We'll sell you alcohol. We don't care. We'll take the risk of running afoul of the law. And so that was how it got created. Anytime you ban or outlaw something, you're going to create a black market for it. That is how human nature works. All right? In capitalist economies like ours, prices adjust dynamically. If something is scarce, prices rise. Ever try to buy an air conditioner in a heat wave? Ever tried to buy a generator in a power outage? Ever tried to buy eggs when there's an avian flu and flocks are not producing eggs? Prices go up. That's how capitalism works. It's how supply chains adapt. It's how technology evolves. It's how consumers' needs get met. Plain and simple. I know people love to talk about price gouging, but the reality is those people that take action when the market signals to them drive the economy. They drive innovation. They drive business. I know it's unpopular, but it's absolutely the truth. So you've got to trust real-world feedback. Whether it's customer reviews or profit margins, adjust based on data, not ideology, not feels, not dreams and wishes. You've got to trust data. You've got to trust the market signals to run your business and allow others to run their businesses. And if you don't operate in a business, you probably need to listen to the people that do, because they probably know more about it than you, because they're more familiar with it. Plain and simple. Okay, reason number 3. Bureaucracies always expand while value shrinks. So, Private industries are always looking to do less with more. Sorry, do more with less. Bureaucracies always say they need more and produce less when they get it. Let's look at Germany, right? Most people alive today that were born after 1990 don't know or don't realize or remember that after the World War, after the Second World War, Germany was divided into two nations. There was East Germany and West Germany. West Germany was capitalist, East Germany was communist. So what did it look like? Same people, same language, different systems. So East Germany went to socialism and stagnated. West Germany embraced capitalism and became an economic powerhouse. They reunified in 1990. They had to spend, the Germans, when they reunified the country, they had to spend $2 trillion to bring the people and the areas that were East Germany up to the standards of Germany proper after it was reunified. Good Lord, I don't know why I can't say that word. After it was reunified. Socialism grows bureaucracies that consume resources but don't generate value. Anytime the government says we created X, it is not true. The only way government raises funds is to confiscate those funds from the private market. More administrators, more regulators, more control, and fewer producers. That's what socialism is. And it always has been, it always will be. Eventually, the system collapses under its own weight. It will happen every single time. It is a mathematical certainty. When the producers are outnumbered by the takers, the producers can't keep up with the takers and the system collapses. It happens every single time. Whereas capitalism rewards lean operations and innovation. Successful businesses get stronger by serving customers efficiently, not by expanding regulatory departments. It just doesn't happen. And let's talk about greed for a second. I don't understand why it's greedy to want to keep the money that you make, but it's not greedy to want to take the money someone else's makes and decide without their consent how to spend their money. That doesn't make any sense to me. Why is it greedy to want to keep your own money, but it's not greedy to want to confiscate money someone else has made and then arbitrarily spend it on things you think are important? How's that not greedy? I don't understand. Make it make sense to me. So, audit your own life or business. Where are you adding unnecessary layers? Have you developed some Rube Goldberg machine to make decisions or to get things done? You want to cut bloat. You want to simplify. You want to double down on value creation. It is why capitalism works. It is why socialism fails. Those same principles will work everywhere in your life, personally and professionally. Okay. Reason number 4, socialism punishes success. It absolutely punishes success. Cuba's revolutionary government confiscated private property and nationalized businesses. Entrepreneurs fled. The capital that was flowing into Cuba dried up. No one's going to invest when you can't make any profit by investing there. And Cuba descended into decades of poverty and rationing, despite high levels of education and a strong geographic location. People literally risked their lives floating across the Caribbean Sea to the United States to get out of Cuba, to get out of that system. I don't know of anyone who tried to float across illegally to Cuba so they could become a part of the socialist regime. If you know about it, let me know. I don't know of anybody going from the United States to Cuba. I know thousands, if not tens or hundreds of thousands, tried to get out of Cuba and come to the United States. That wasn't an accident. When success is vilified, talented individuals leave, plain and simple. Capital flees. You're seeing it in California. They're tired of being taxed and regulated. Businesses are relocating to non or less regulated states. Texas, Florida. You're seeing a population growth and businesses migrate from California to those freer states. You're seeing it out of Illinois. You're seeing it out of New York. People vote with their feet. If the New York actually elects a socialist mayor, you will see businesses flee, just like they always have. Investment stops, innovation dies, the brain drain cripples entire generations. Capitalism, on the other hand, celebrates success and rewards innovation. That's how we got Google. That's how we got Tesla. That's how we got Amazon. That's how we got Ford. That's how we got Standard Oil. That's how we got all the companies that have made significant impacts in human existence through capitalism. Critics may dislike billionaires, and that's fine. I didn't say you have to like them. But those companies that I just listed off have literally employed millions and millions of people and delivered value to billions and billions of people. So you can dislike billionaires all you want. Most people don't become billionaires by stealing money from anyone. They create value and they serve billions of customers and they get rewarded for it. That is capitalism at its finest. It's very straightforward. So don't ever apologize for winning. Don't ever apologize for being successful. But make sure that your success is lifting other people up, that's creating value, that's making the world a better place. Find ways to produce, contribute, and build. You'll be rewarded for it in our capitalist system. And don't let people try to push socialism without forcing them to explain somewhere that it's worked. They're never going to be able to point to somewhere where socialism has worked because it never has. Okay, reason number 5. Socialist economies can never pay the bills without printing money. It comes down to printing money every single time. Like we talked about, as the bureaucracy grows and the bloat grows, you can't produce enough to feed that machine. And the only way to feed it is to print money, which leads to hyperinflation. Let's look at Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe had socialist policies for decades, including land confiscation and massive public spending. That led to one of the worst cases of hyperinflation in modern history. By 2008, Zimbabwe was printing a $100 trillion note. So instead of $1, you would pull a $100 trillion note out of your wallet to pay for your bread because of the hyperinflation that came from printing money and inflating the money supply, which inflates prices every single time. It's literally one of the first things you learn in economics. It's not rocket science. Capitalism, while not perfect, I'm not saying capitalism is perfect. I'm saying it's the best system we've created so far. And it's certainly not perfect. There are problems with capitalism that we need to deal with. Number 1 is making sure there's markets. You can't have monopolies in markets. They won't work. They just don't function because too much pricing power controlled by a group of small people is exactly the same thing as socialism. It's just a private group of people that are doing it, so it doesn't work. But capitalist societies have the mechanism to create real wealth, entrepreneurship. That's where it comes from, by creating. You don't get a bigger slice of the pie, you actually grow the pie. And that is wealth creation, creating a bigger pie, not getting a bigger slice of the pie that exists. Capital formation, investment, productivity growth, that's how value is created. It's not redistributed. It's not how it works at all. So, one way to think about this too is you got to watch out for quick fixes and fake wealth. Anytime you can get rich quick, you can lose that money quickly, or that source of revenue can dry up quickly as well. Anytime you see a successful business, a truly successful business, it's been probably 10 to 15 years in the making. You just don't get to see the struggle and the grind that happened because it happens before those people hit it big, before those people become famous, before their IPO happens and they become overnight billionaires. Sure, one day they're not a billionaire, the next day they are, but it took them 15 years to get the business in position to create that. Real value is built through discipline, through innovation, and through time. Not through handouts, not through get-rich-quick schemes, not through flim-flam stuff. It's real work, it's value creation, it's serving the needs of the market. That's how you build wealth. So, those are our 5 reasons, but we've got a bonus for you here. We're big on capitalism, so you say, great, what has capitalism ever done? People like to talk about income disparity, and got it, there is income disparity. There's been income disparity our entire lives. Totally understand that. And is it worse now than it has been? We can debate that back and forth. I'm not disputing that. I'm not saying capitalism is perfect. But let's look at what capitalism has delivered. And these are facts. This is just true. So vaccines and medicine, capitalist pharmaceutical industries. And I'm no fan of big pharma. That industry has grown too big, and look what we've allowed. We've allowed them basically a monopoly, and we've got to break up the healthcare industry if we want it to function and serve the market. But what has got us to where we're at? The capitalist pharmaceutical industries helped eradicate smallpox and create treatments for polio. They created treatments for cancer. They created treatments for HIV. That was all capitalism. And millions of people are alive because of those things. That's a good thing, not a bad thing. Food security. One of the most basic things, but most important things that capitalism has ever delivered is fertilizer. GMOs. I know people don't like GMOs, but have you ever seen a non-GMO banana, a banana from the 1900s to now? The banana from the 1900s is inedible. We couldn't feed the world's supply of people with non-GMO bananas. You couldn't grow them. They're too much goes wrong with them, and you don't have enough crop to feed the people. Mechanized farming. That's another one. All born from capitalist innovation. All of it. Reduced global famine and doubled food output in 50 years. In 50 years, we've reduced famine. And we're going to talk a little bit about where we're at in poverty and famine. And it's shocking. And it's capitalism that has done it. Climate control, heating and air conditioning. The world is a really tough place to live in. And we have created indoor environments where people can seek refuge from extreme weather. And by the way more people die every year from the cold than from the heat. So when people talk to you about global warming or point to global warming, is the globe warming some? Yes. Is man contributing to that? Yes. Do we know how much man is contributing to that? Absolutely not. Do we know that man is responsible for 30% or 60% or 90% of that change? Absolutely not. We have maybe 200 years of history. We don't know what's happened for tens of thousands of years. So the doomsday people and the people who say, we've got 5 years and it's irreversible. Bullshit. At one point, our planet was nothing but volcanoes and sulfuric acid spewing into the environment. And here we are. Did it take millions of years? Sure it did. But don't listen to the doom and gloomers, because today, even in the hottest parts of the world, more people die of cold exposure than heat exposure every year. That is facts. That is scientific evidence. That is proven. It's not disputable. But we've dramatically reduced those deaths from exposure because of capitalism. According to The Lancet, cold and heat-related deaths are down over 50% in developed countries since 1980. We still got work to do. There's still people in Asia. There's still people in Central America. There's still people in Africa that don't have the refuge. They don't have air conditioning when it gets super hot. They don't have heat when it gets super cold. And they're still exposed to that. But capitalism has fixed that in a lot of developed countries to the tune of over 50% reduction in heat or cold related deaths since 1980. That's remarkable when you think about it. And then let's look at overall global wealth. In 1980, over 40% of the world lived in extreme poverty. Today, it's under 9%. So we took it from 40% in 1980 to under 9% in 2025. That is crazy. That has never happened in human history. There's never been this many people that were lifted out of extreme poverty. And you can thank the spread of capitalism for that. Places like India, China, parts of Africa have adopted and embraced capitalism, and it's lifted all of those people out of extreme poverty. So not a perfect system, but by far the best one we've ever found as human beings. So bottom line, socialism doesn't fail because it's got bad intentions. I like the concepts of socialism. I'd love it if everyone was taken care of. I'd love it if people didn't have to worry about money. I'd love it if no one ever went hungry. I'd love it if everyone got exactly the medical care that they needed. But socialism fails because it fights against human nature. When you remove the profit motive, people are not motivated to produce. They're not motivated to innovate. They're not motivated to take chances. They're not motivated to invest, so they don't. And things stagnate. Socialism ignores incentives, it punishes success, and it tries to control what only a free market can truly manage. And that's incontrovertible. You show me the evidence against what I said, I'll listen to it, I'm happy to. But it doesn't exist, because it's never happened. So there you go. Capitalism isn't perfect, but it's the greatest wealth engine, innovation generator, and poverty killer the world has ever known. And don't forget it. All right, guys, so James puts it up over here every day. Head over to our website, saltygingertalk.com. All the podcast episodes are available there. Links to all our social media accounts are available there. We've got a newsletter we publish every weekday, and you can subscribe to that there. This episode will air on July 3rd. I hope everyone has a safe and happy 4th of July. Be careful. Fireworks are very dangerous. Lots of people get injured lighting off fireworks in their yard every year. Don't be one of those people. Have a good time with your family. Celebrate the freedom of our country. But take care of yourself and make sure you're safe. All right? And always like, share, comment, subscribe to the podcast. Love having you on board. We're going to keep having episodes like this. We're going to keep having great interview episodes with people that can share great ways to think and great approaches to build the life that you want. You don't want to miss those because they're awesome. You don't want to miss our guests because they're awesome. Make sure you tune into the next episode. We'll see you there.